Situated in the picturesque countryside of Earling, Iowa, is a Franciscan convent. The warm breeze of a bright summer day in 1928 is in stark contrast to the dark, soul-stirring phenomenon occurring just beyond the convent walls. Inside, a disturbed woman displays such bone-chilling behaviors that the nuns caring for her are left terrified. This case quickly became a national sensation, and the attending father emerges as America's most famous exorcist to date. The pseudonym Anna Ecklund was given in an attempt at anonymity, but by the time the exorcism was over, most of the country already knew who she was. This is the possession of Emma Schmidt.
Welcome to another episode of Hosting Evil. I'm Carly, the audio engineer behind the scenes, and we hope you enjoy this bonus Halloween episode.
Researching this case reverted me back to being a little girl, terrified to get out of bed in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. It shook me.
Oh no.
It definitely affected my nights. So Emma Schmidt was born to Jacob and Anna Schmidt on March 23rd, 1882 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She was one of 9 kids, typical from back then. There was, especially Catholic families, there was a lot of kids that they had.
Yep.
She also had an Aunt Mina. This would be Mom's sister.
Okay.
Who will come into play later. So just remember that name, Aunt Mina. So by all accounts, when Emma was young, she led a very religious and pious life. She was what you would consider a good girl.
Okay.
And then at 14, some unusual things started to manifest. When she wanted to pray or go to church, or if she wanted to receive communion, there was some inner force interfering with it and preventing her from doing that.
But not to be confused with puberty.
No, but maybe. But no.
Right.
But also maybe at that time. She also started taking part in unspeakable sex acts.
Oh,
at 14.
Ugh.
And this was not like her. It just kind of, boom, came on at the age of 14 again, right around puberty.
Yeah.
At this time, Emma became aware of sinister voices she started to hear that would say really horrible things and tried to get her to entertain thoughts of the most shameful things one could think.
Okay.
My brain goes to puppy killing. I don't know what your brain goes to.
Being naked in public. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she was rendered, though, pretty helpless by this time and was secretively thinking that maybe she was going insane, as any sane person probably would.
A good question to ask.
She had thoughts of tearing down the house of God or suffocating her spiritual advisor. Just general thoughts of violence started to plague her, and it bothered her, obviously.
But also directed towards the church.
Yeah, and I think at times her family too.
Okay.
So it's the church definitely agitated it, but then she also started to get violent thoughts toward her friends and family.
Okay.
And those around her thought she was experiencing hallucinations. That's what it looked like to them.
Yeah.
So she had multiple specialists look her over at her family's beckoning, and it was determined that she was totally fine and there was no mental health issues going on whatsoever.
Okay.
Puberty, maybe. Mental health, no.
Although, what was mental health then?
Back then, who
but
knows?
Whatever. All right.
So this went on for years.
Oh, no.
Years. Until the church finally took it seriously with Emma enough to have a conversation about it internally.
Okay.
So the powers to be within the church examined her and observed some strange occurrences. And they were like, yeah, I think there's something going on here.
Right.
So one of the things that stood out to them when they were doing their examinations was that she could understand languages that she had never heard before. When the priest blessed her in Latin, she understood and then immediately started foaming at the mouth and became angry.
Oh, no.
So that's one of the things that stood out to them.
Yeah, right.
So another interesting occurrence too, when priests are trying to determine if someone is legit possessed, they will oftentimes bless items or sprinkle holy water on items and try to get the demons to react to that. Because if it's true possession, the demons will know. If it's fake possession, the person will not know.
Yes. Okay.
So Emma, when they did all this to her, was on point every time.
Okay.
She knew exactly which items were blessed with or was sprinkled with holy water. So after years of these observations, Yeah, the church then took more years
Jesus.
to observe with this woman. Yeah, they took their grand old time with this poor. She's now
She's
now a woman.
right? Yeah.
So when she turned 40,
Oh my God.
the church was like, her youth is slipping away. Let's let the demons go too.
They're
So
like, puberty. Maybe it's now menopause.
yeah, seriously.
I mean, right?
Like they were just
40?
taking their time with her. And
Their
meanwhile,
sweet
she's
old
experiencing
time.
all these things. So
And
from
she's
14 to
just
40.
Suffering.
Suffering.
Good God.
So enter Father Theophilus. We'll call him Father Theo from here on out.
Okay.
He was very familiar with possession cases and expelling demons out of many people, working primarily in the U.S.
Okay.
There's no shock there that the U.S. has many possessed people.
To this day.
To this day. So the bishop immediately appointed him due to his expertise.
Okay.
So behind the scenes, though, the pastor of a parish in Earling, Iowa, who was actually friends with Father Theo, they had been friends for many years, was asked if the exorcism could take place at the convent on the property. They wanted to remove Emma from Wisconsin and put her somewhere else. They didn't want anyone knowing.
I mean, that can make sense because who knows what might happen, but also, get her somewhere holy.
Yeah.
That's been
Protected
blessed.
with people they trust.
So,
So Father Theo was to head to Earling to the convent where it was ultimately decided that Emma would have her exorcism there. So
gotta love an exorcism in a convent.
Best kind. So Earling, Iowa was and is a small town and home to many farmers, many families. And in the middle of this small town up on a hill is the convent owned by the Franciscan sisters. So aside from the pastor of this parish, his blood sister, who was the housekeeper, and the nuns, not a soul in Earling knew this was going to happen. They wanted complete privacy and anonymity for Emma.
Okay, so the nuns knew, and his housekeeper sister.
Yep, and then Father Theo coming, and then the pastor at the parish. Were the only, and then obviously the bishop and the church and
right, the people that okayed it, but like no one in town.
No one in town knew a thing. And that's when the name Anna Ecklund emerged as a pseudonym in order to protect her identity, just in case something got out. They didn't want her real name out there.
Okay.
So Emma was still living in Wisconsin, so she had to travel by train to get to Earling. And on the train, she caused a lot of problems, and as you can imagine. And the train crew was told like some of what was going on.
Right.
But she would fly into these fits of rage and kick and scream, and the train crew was like not prepared in handling that at all. So some of them had started giving accounts later just on the violence that they witnessed from her on the train and by her handlers. Who was handling her, I don't know.
Yeah.
But she was definitely escorted.
Right.
So the priest from the convent was to pick up Father Theo from the train station.
Okay.
He was coming in from a different train, but he was more than 2 hours late getting to him as his brand new car was giving him all kinds of car trouble, even though they couldn't find anything wrong with it. So when he arrived, he apologized to Father Theo, who was like, "It's the work of the devil. He's trying to,
right.
to
I literally
foil our
was
plans."
Gonna say that the devil has gotten kickstarted. He's said,
ready to go.
You can't go. Stop that car.
Well, Father Theo tells the pastor, the whole time you were on your way here, I was praying for you because I had a feeling the devil was going to try to harm you. The pastor's like, "Great." He does like the signs of the cross and says the rosary the entire way back to the convent in fear. Poor guy.
That poor priest.
So now everyone is at the convent, including Emma. And the demons wasted no time in displaying themselves. So one of the well-meaning nuns sprinkled holy water on Emma's food before it left the kitchen.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, she meant well, but she should really know, like...
Well, yeah.
So when the food got up to Emma, she immediately became enraged, causing a scene. So she's violent, she's screaming, and then she stops and all of a sudden starts purring like a cat.
Oh.
Like a human, like cat purring is like so super cute, but human doing that is not
weird.
okay.
No, never. And especially like a 40-year-old woman
who just was flying into a fit of rage and is now like purr. So everyone was like, oh my God,
shit.
What the hell are we getting ready to get ourselves into? The next morning, all was quiet in the convent. Morning mass was held at the parish as usual, and the room that was ready to be the exorcist room was ready to go. It was all set up. And so they knew the demons would not go without a fight and that they could be at this for days or weeks, depending.
Yeah.
So Emma was placed on a mattress of an iron bed. And it was advised by Father Theo that her arms be tightly bound. I guess from experience, they get
Right.
violent
He's seen this
and you can hit,
before. They
kick,
can
and
thrash
yeah, they
and
don't want people to get hurt.
breaking somebody's nose,
Yeah. So
right?
strong nuns were selected to be on hand in case there were any attacks.
These poor nuns.
So after the prayers of the church were said, Emma immediately fell into unconsciousness. So she just was
Okay.
like out. Father Theo begins the prayers when all of a sudden Emma dislodges herself from the binding.
Oh my
Okay. And with this quick and powerful force, she is thrust through the air
god.
and lands high above the door frame, just clinging there with this sinister look on her face. Like, this is not a
Whoa.
rock wall where you can find, like, nooks and crannies to chill. It's the smooth surface, and she's being held there by some force, looking down at everyone with just this look on her face.
Oh my like horror movie.
The people in that room were left terrified. Like, I probably would have passed out right after peeing myself if I saw
Yeah,
that.
right?
But Father Theo's, like, fine. This is not new to him.
Right.
And so he orders them all to pull her down, and they all said that it was really hard to get her down. There was another force holding her
Yeah,
there, so it took
right.
multiple people to get her
That's
down from this high position and back down to the ground.
that's super strength.
So this time they put her back on the bed and they took more precautions, Don't want that to happen again. So the
Fool me once.
Yeah, right. So the exorcism resumed, and shortly after, this loud, shrill voice filled the room, but it sounded like it was coming from somewhere else
Oh no.
outside of the room. And they said it sounded like a pack of wild beasts were on the loose, getting closer.
Okay.
So as the noise went on, it started becoming clearer to everyone that it was actually coming from Emma.
Holy shit.
And they said the sound was so unnatural
Yeah.
and like not of this world that it was really difficult for them to withstand listening to it.
That's insane.
It was at a deafening pitch.
Right. Yeah.
Again, unfazed, Father Theo is basically like rebuking this and told the demons to, quote, shut your mouth. That's where I would go with it, like, shut your
Right,
mouth.
yeah.
But the noises continued, and even though the windows were, like, closed up there, reports came out later that people down in the town in their homes could hear it. So, like, wind carries sound, right? So
Right.
you're outside hanging your laundry
And
or
they're on the
playing.
top of a mountain.
Yeah, they're up on the hill.
Yeah, everything in this setting is creepy.
Yes.
Like it's set up.
So you're outside, like, playing catch with your kid, and they said this ungodly sound comes across this town to the point where
Wow.
people were coming out of their homes looking to one another like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
They were quoted as saying pigs being stabbed with a butcher knife wasn't half as bad as this sound.
Holy crap.
I'm sure everyone had nightmares that night from the town.
Right? If they even slept at all.
But this is how it was discovered
Okay. That's right.
that
yeah.
someone was up there.
Something's going
They
on.
thought, honestly, that someone was getting murdered at the convent.
Right.
So that elicited this, like,
Outrage.
we need to go find out what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And so it started drawing large and small crowds at different times. And it didn't matter what they did inside. They couldn't control the sound. It was
Right.
just permeating throughout not only the convent and the property, but the town.
Yeah.
It was that loud.
Wow.
And the people in the crowds, even though they weren't witnessing this, they were
Mhm.
just kind of at the property listening.
Yeah.
People would pass out from the sounds that they were hearing.
Experiencing it. Yeah, that makes sense.
It was just way too much. So if that's happening to people in the crowds that aren't even witnessing it
in person.
in person, you can imagine what the nuns were going through that were in the room.
Yeah. Or even in the building.
Yeah, it was 10 times harder for people. The
Wow.
eyewitnesses were really struggled with this. So during the exorcisms, and this took place over the course of 23 days, just to put
Okay.
it out there, Emma's physical condition was quite gruesome at times.
Ugh.
Parts of her body would twist
Ew.
and become distorted, making it unbearable. Well, for her, it was painful,
Mhm.
but it was also unbearable for those to watch it.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine, like, me sitting here talking to you and all of a sudden, like, my arm is,
No,
like, twisting
I
out of its
can't.
socket?
Like what was the one movie The Grudge where they, like, climb down the demon climbs down the stairs, like,
Yeah, all
backwards.
disjointed. It's gross.
I wanna vomit just thinking about it.
So, like, and many of the nuns and the pastor would have to take turns leaving the room because they couldn't endure it for too long, but needed to go to regain their strength in order to
Right.
continue.
Yeah.
But Father Theo, remaining cool, calm, and collected, I guess when you've seen one twisted body and possessed by demons, you've seen them all. It was necessary, though, for him to find out during the exorcism how many demons they were actually dealing with.
Okay.
Because he has to make sure that they're all they're all out when it's all said and
Yeah,
done.
that's true. You gotta get, like, that certification,
Yep. Oh,
like,
Beelzebub, he's gone. Lucifer, not
how
there.
many arrived with this package?
Yeah.
How many need to leave with this package?
So at various times, though, different voices were heard coming out of Emma, which indicated that a number of spirits were obviously present here. Some voices sounded unnatural and beast-like, while others sounded more human. So they
Okay.
definitely knew that they were dealing with a multitude here.
Yeah.
And it is common that when asked questions, Satan
Mhm.
tries to sidestep questions or mislead or lie. So when
Mhm.
Satan was asked how many spirits were involved, he would proudly admit that there were many, but not give a number.
Of course not.
Yeah, he's not going to out himself at this point.
He's the Lord of
He's the
Lies.
Lord of Lies. As soon as Father Theo mentioned Jesus, though, Satan, through Emma, would howl and foam at the mouth like a rabid animal would, and this awful howling sound she would make would last for hours and took place like every day
Oh my
and every
god.
night that these people had to like listen to this. And at times it was so intense that they said it sounded like a herd of lions were running around the convent at times, or that
Whoa.
other droves of multiple animals were present. Like, they could hear all sorts of animal sounds
Yeah, I
in
can
there.
I'm imagining, like, a safari experience.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're
In the
hearing
convent, though.
yeah, like, in a
It's not like
building.
safari at Six Flags, like, this is, like, the convent, so it's like, "Oh, wait, there's a lion. No, there's an elephant," and
Like,
it's
in
all
a
coming from this
giant
one
house or
woman. Yeah.
something. Yeah,
It's
that's
insane.
crazy.
So, again, when Father Theo addressed Satan, he spoke in different languages, including German and Latin. Every spirit present replied in the correct tongue.
Wow.
And if Father Theo misspoke any of his languages, those demons were, like, right on him, like a ninth grade Spanish teacher would be, like, correcting him.
Oh my god, how cocky.
So cocky.
Well, they are demons.
Yes, and they are the better of everyone,
Of
they're very
course.
narcissistic.
Yeah.
So during one of these conversations Father Theo had with the demons, he asked why they were torturing Emma, and they replied that her own father cursed her. So
Oh,
Emma's father,
no.
Jacob, was deceased by this point,
Okay.
but they asked if he was one of the ones that was there possessing her, and they replied, quote, "He has been with us ever since he was damned." So
Whoa.
just then, a deep voice came through, this rough, rugged voice, and Father Theo asked if it was Emma's father, Jacob, and it hissed, quote, "No, I am Judas."
Oh,
The nuns lost their shit.
of course.
They were, and just quick refresher, Judas was the one of the 12 apostles who ultimately betrayed Jesus and led to his crucifixion. So when Judas announced himself, the nuns were like, "Peace out, we're done. Like, we're
Yeah.
out of here."
Like, the big bad just came. I can't complete this
Like, I
level.
thought we were just here to help for like a few
Yeah, I'm
hours. This
gonna
is not what I signed
go.
up for. So a few of them had to run out of the room because they were just like done at that
That
point.
was the bar was set.
So right after Judas announced himself, though, Emma started violently vomiting, as if they said it was as if she was vomiting all of Judas's inner waste.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So when asked why he was present, though, he exclaimed that he wanted Emma to commit suicide by hanging herself. He
Like he
said,
did.
yep, he said, quote, "She must get the rope and go to hell." So it's interesting because Father Theo had a brief conversation with Judas about suicide. So if anyone listening is sensitive to that topic, you might want to skip ahead just a little bit. So Father Theo asked him if everyone who commits suicide goes to hell.
Okay.
Judas said no, but that many suicides are urged to do the act by demons,
Oh, shit.
just as, quote, "I did myself."
Whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah, they're like
How
having,
about that for some, like, old school knowledge on ya?
yeah. I mean, so Judas and Father Theo are having this like conversation about this, and
Yeah.
he's again. Does that mean it's truthful or
Right.
true? No, but
Yeah.
it is a conversation that they had, and it was definitely worth noting. So Father Theo then asked Judas if he regretted committing suicide. So Judas sort of dismissed the question and sidestepped it. I feel like anytime I wanna avoid giving an answer, it's because I don't want to admit what the answer is, right? So that's
Right.
how I took that
Yeah.
with Judas here. Right after that, another voice came through announcing itself as Jacob, Emma's dad. So this next part is a bit disturbing, so I'll just give you the gist. So he said because Emma had repeatedly turned away his incestuous advances on her earlier in life, he cursed her and wished that devils would, quote, enter her and entice her to commit every possible sin against chastity, therefore ruining her body and soul. Father of the year right there, folks.
Wow.
I mean,
I
what kind
mean,
of monster curses his own daughter?
and
Well, and
it's
wants to have incestuous
well,
relationships
yeah,
with
I
her.
mean,
That goes
he's
without saying.
a piece of shit.
He's
But
awful.
oh,
So Jacob said that even though he committed sins in life, obviously you would think that given his character, it was this cursing of his daughter that sealed his fate in hell. Good call,
okay,
Satan.
sure. Yeah, I'll give Satan credit
Yeah,
for that
seriously.
judgment, right?
But even in hell, Jacob was still scheming on how to torture his daughter.
What
Even in
the
hell. Like just continuing on as if nothing had happened.
WTF?
So remember earlier when I said, remember Aunt Mina?
Yes.
So the next evil spirit up
Oh
possessing this poor
no.
girl was you guessed it, Aunt Mina.
We all have that one mean aunt.
Well, she was also Jacob's mistress.
And she was the sister to the mother,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So, okay. Ugh. Sister-in-law from hell.
She was also a reputable witch in life
Oh,
who would oftentimes cast spells on the herbs that she
okay.
would subsequently make food with and give to others.
Okay.
So she was
A low down dirty
hoe
witch.
bag. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say.
That also works
Well,
though.
I mean, she's screwing her sister's husband,
Husband.
God knows who else,
Yeah. Yeah.
and is cursing people through food.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is,
seriously?
I
Like, that ruins
mean,
food for me.
yeah.
So her voice was this, like, high falsetto when she spoke,
Okay.
and she claimed to be in hell for killing children. They
Okay.
didn't go into detail about that, but when they asked her how many she killed, she exclaimed, "3. No, wait, 4."
Oh my God. Well, like a real psycho.
Uh-huh.
She can't
She
even
can't remember her
remember.
victims.
Yeah.
And Mina was filled with such hate that surprisingly enough, it far surpassed every demon that came through, including Judas.
That's
Isn't that
insane.
crazy? And when she spoke, so when Mina spoke through Emma, she would spit and projectile vomit so much so that the priest and Father Theo had to constantly be cleaning off their faces.
Oh
How
my God.
disgusting.
Isn't that in the don't they do that in The Exorcist?
Well, where do you think they got that from? They
Right?
got that from this case.
Of course.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
the producers
That's
and writers or whoever did
yeah.
take some elements of this case and put it in the film The Exorcist. So it's important to note too that this like Q&A was not a continuous conversation. This
Okay.
was not back and forth. It took place over days where the dialogue was constantly interrupted by hours and hours of Emma howling and barking and other spirits coming in yelling.
Whoa.
It was constantly getting interrupted, and these other demons would like pop in and out to kind of muck up everything.
Pure chaos.
So the question and answers that Father Theo's having is not just continuous dialogue because that would be too easy, right?
Well, yeah, is Satan ever
No.
straightforward?
No. But as a result of these disturbances, going back to Emma and some of the physical things she would go through, Emma's face would become so distorted that no one could recognize her facial features anymore.
Wow.
Her eyes would protrude out of the sockets, and her lips swelled up to the proportions equaling the size of hands.
Oh my God.
Her face was pale, right? She's not the most nutritious part of her life is not happening at this point. So her face
Right.
was pale, but at times her skin and her eyes would become so red, they said it was like glowing embers.
Oh my god. Ugh.
Her whole body became so horribly disfigured that the contour of her body shape completely disappeared. And the nuns felt at times that it was as if she was getting ready to be torn to pieces and would back away from her like a she's gonna blow type of thing.
Oh
Like
my
they didn't see how
gosh.
her body could naturally withstand the contorting and the disfigurement. They said she didn't even look like a human at
Yeah.
some parts of this.
Well, and she has enough demons in her that, like, she's how much of her is even human anymore?
Right. So at other times too, her arms or her stomach would become so hard, it was almost like steel, but it would break the iron bed rails under her
Oh my
and bend
god.
them because of and now she's emaciated and
Right,
totally
of
frail at this point. She's
course.
not eating. She weighs nothing,
Yeah.
but her body weight because of how hard.
That super strength of the demonic
Yep.
possession,
They're seeing
yeah.
it bend iron.
That's insane. And you can't deny that. It's not like she's bending aluminum foil.
No, no. I mean, this is like iron
Yeah,
bed rails that this woman was fine before, but then when this phenomenon would occur, they would see everything starting to bend under her.
that's insane.
So during the exorcism, any mention of Saint Michael, the archangel sent to help in the battle against the evil spirits, Satan would recoil. And when he knew Saint Michael's name was coming up in prayer, he would get so agitated and couldn't handle it anymore, like hated hearing his name.
Yeah.
Satan also hated any relics of the true cross, which is the one that Jesus died on. So one day a cross was brought in during the exorcism, and Satan started laughing and said, "Since when did he die on a paper cross?" Upon further inspection, they thought that the cross was made of wood. It was actually made of paper mache.
Oh my
They didn't know
god,
that,
they
but
didn't
Satan
even
did. Satan was
know?
like, "Fools, that's not even
Yeah.
real. You think that's wood? Think again." So the pastor and Father Theo, they were friends before this and had known each other for years, but all of a sudden now the pastor couldn't bear the presence of Father Theo anymore and started getting really bitter and agitated toward him. But Father Theo recognized this as an attempt by Satan to like pit the two men against each other because that's what he
Okay.
does best, create
Right.
hate in
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's kind of understandable too that he wouldn't like Father
Well,
Theo.
and he's the one that brought this into his life.
Right, yeah. So
But under normal circumstances, he would have
he
kept
wouldn't
his,
have felt
like
that
yeah,
way.
he wouldn't have
Yeah.
felt that way because he was there ultimately help Emma.
Mhm.
So on one of the days during the exorcism, the pastor had to leave to go read last rites to one of his parish members, and on the way back got into a car accident.
Oh no.
So when he got back to rejoin the exorcism, no one had known about this.
Okay.
So when he walked in the room, Satan starts this laughing. And he's, like, taunting the pastor, like, "How's your new car?"
Oh no.
And he announces that the new car is smashed to smithereens. So no one in the room knew
That's
about this,
yeah.
and they turn to the pastor, and they're like, "Is what he's saying true?" And he's just like, "Yeah, my
Yeah.
car's a piece of shit, totally wrecked." And Satan took full credit for it.
Of course. So unforeseen knowledge.
Yep, and still the interference of foiling
Yeah.
any plans with the exorcism.
Any attempts to make things better.
It's talking about knowledge, Satan has knowledge that even precedes the exorcism. He will bring up things of embarrassing nature of those in the room
Oh,
from even far back as
okay.
childhood. Now,
Yeah.
he did mention in one of the conversations with Father Theo that Satan doesn't know what has never been confessed.
Okay.
So unless he's causing it, like the accident, he
Mhm.
can't know things that weren't ever done in confession. Now you're talking about nuns and priests. There's not much current things that he could have on them because they were
Yeah.
living a religious life, not like, you know, some of the other in the world who maybe were
Right.
doing
Like
shisty
we're
things.
gonna assume that these are like good-hearted people with good intentions, living good
So he
lives.
couldn't come up with much, but would like start talking about stuff from their childhood and teen years when they probably were sinning quite a ton. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus, I mean,
Didn't we
I probably
all?
sinned a ton. So he was like bringing stuff up about them to try, because what he's doing is he's trying to get them so uncomfortable that they leave.
Yeah,
But he
right?
was trying his damnedest to get everyone to feel uncomfortable because what he does too is because he will sprinkle in truths,
Mhm.
he can then fill that in with lies to make everyone just super uncomfortable.
Right, and also convince because if there's enough of a truth, you can be convinced to believe a lie.
Yes. So there were a number of silent devils that would make these like awful noises, and they are considered like the less popular devils. Yes, hell is just like high school. There's social status.
I'm not
No.
surprised.
So these guys couldn't influence the possession directly.
Okay.
They would come in to create disturbances. They were the
Okay.
ones that were interfering with all this like Q&A, causing loud obnoxious
Troublemakers.
noises, yeah. And they would come and go in droves.
Oh, wow.
So they were always present. So then you have your popular devils, your Judases, your Lucifers, your
Yeah.
Cains. Those are the ones that can create actual influence during a possession case. And we see Judas here. Lucifer came through as well, but it was mostly Judas, Jacob, Mina that were the
Okay.
the
Yeah.
popular demons here. And then you have your not popular, not lower class devils. These are called the avenging spirits. They do not like people.
Okay.
Honestly, this is probably who I'd be hanging out with if I was in if I was
If
in
you were
hell.
in
This
hell,
is
the
the social class
avenging
I would be in.
spirits.
They would be the ones that at nights, like after the exorcism happened and people would be trying to get rest,
Mhm.
the sound of like many rats gnawing in the rooms at
Oh,
this convent
no.
would be heard by
Oh,
people, and they'd
no.
wake up in the middle of the night and there's not a single animal,
Ooh.
but it would happen every night for hours. So what
Ooh.
that did was it created them to be tired the next
Right,
day
yeah.
and their guard to be down.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's what their job was, to kind of like get in the head and mess with people.
Manipulative in a
Typical.
very, like, undersided way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely added a level to this possession because, during the exorcism, yeah, you're dealing with all kinds of stuff, but then you're back in your room.
Right, you think it's
You
over.
think it's over. No, it's
It's
just these
not.
god awful sounds of like rat teeth in the room
Oh
gnawing for
my god.
hours. So the moment the exorcism would start, though, Emma would lose consciousness every time
Okay.
and would wake up after drained, asking what happened because she had like no recollection of anything. And it's also important to note here, she would open her mouth and speak outside of the exorcism, but the moment the
Okay.
exorcism happened, her mouth was sealed so tightly that they couldn't even pry it open if they wanted
Oh,
to.
wow.
So it was said that the devil and these evil spirits would use other parts of her organs to communicate. Just the thought of like, I don't know, a
Like
devil
your
using my ovaries
nose.
or something
Yeah, right? Or like
to
your
communicate.
armpit.
So they would hear the responses and all the discussion that they were having through one of her internal organs inside.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
never opened her mouth once. So all these conversations were heard
Through her body.
through her body. So even though she was unconscious, during the time, Emma would state that during this time of unconsciousness, she was witnessing the battle between good and evil in front of her. And she said
Oh,
she said
wow.
it was gruesome.
But interesting because, like, some cases, like, when people experience that, it's almost like they're fighting the fight.
She was witnessing all these evil spirits, and she said Saint Michael would come in on horse to
Uh,
drive them out and push them out.
okay. That's crazy.
Yeah, but she said the actual battle was so disturbing and hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a bad movie that you don't really wanna see, that you can't look away from.
No, no, and she was experiencing this during the exorcism.
Okay, so pretty much all day.
Yes. Because this would happen from, like the exorcism would start early morning and go
Yeah.
till, like, late night. So during this time, Emma was not able to eat solid food and was only getting nourishment through liquids. They were injecting it into her and trying to get it into her
Whoa.
body. But she would vomit upwards of 20 to 30 times a day
Can you imagine?
by the bucket loads.
Holy
So the
crap.
nuns would have to remove buckets of this
Ugh.
green, awful stenched vomit that they said it looked like she was throwing up debris and tobacco leaves, even though she wasn't eating anything.
Oh my God.
She was so weak too that she couldn't even like get herself to the exorcism room. She had to be carried.
Whoa.
She also produced, they said, unspeakable amounts of urine and feces. So this woman's bodily fluids were insane and extraordinary, inhuman.
Right. I was gonna say, this is one of those moments where you have to admit that something else is going on when a human body is producing things that are
We're incapable of vomiting 20 to 30 days in like a normal day.
20, 30 times in a day, for
Yeah.
sure.
Let
Yeah.
alone when you're not eating anything solid. No, this is, and this was happening every day.
Oh my
So they would
God.
have to line the room with these like gallon-sized buckets prepared.
Oh my
And they'd have, because she
God.
couldn't get up to run to the bathroom.
Right, yeah.
Well, one, she's bound to the bed.
Right, they're probably bringing it to her.
Yeah, so the buckets are there, and it's just this constant. So the nuns were just like dealing with things that like not only the visuals,
Shit,
but dealing
piss and
with
vomit
like
up the walls.
bodily fluids.
Oof. What the heck?
So toward the end of the 23 days, as we're getting closer to the end here, I mean, this was just went on for, this is what they dealt with all day, every day.
Okay.
But they started to see the demons starting to quiet some, and they become more whiny, apparently, during
Okay.
the end. So they're not as like violent as they are in the beginning.
Yeah.
So this is Father Theo's like inkling that like, okay, we're maybe making some headway here.
Maybe they're losing power.
We're closing in on them.
Mm-hmm.
So a vision also occurred in the room that was present to everyone, not just Emma.
Okay.
So the little flower appeared in the form of white roses on the ceiling and gave a message to not lose courage or hope. The end is soon. So the little flower was a French Catholic nun who was like highly regarded in life and dubbed the name Little Flower. Everyone knew her, obviously, in the room. So they're all staring at these white roses that appeared, and they could hear
Mm-hmm.
her message.
Oh, wow.
And then as they're looking at it, it starts to fade away. And that kind of gave everyone like a renewed, because I'm sure they're
That's
like, these people
major,
are like
yeah.
losing it.
Yeah,
So
and
yes,
that's miraculous. Whether there's a possession exorcism going on or not, like to be religious,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
and to have it be eyewitnessed by multiple people, not just
Right.
because sometimes the possessed person will have visions that no one else can see, but this was visual to everyone.
Right.
So the words of encouragement just came at like the perfect time, because these people are like done. They are like
bet.
losing steam. Father Theo's keeping at it, but he can't do this alone.
Right.
Father Theo, after this message, insisted the demons depart, but being banished to another place or into another person was unbearable to the demons. They didn't want to be driven back to hell, but Father Theo was like, dumbasses, you're already there. And they were like, quote, true. Like that's verbatim.
Oh my God.
Minus the dumbass part. That is the exact conversation that happened. So the resistance from the devils was definitely waning, and they did agree to return to hell, but a lot of
Okay.
times during possessions, they will say that shit and be like,
And they don't really get
ha ha ha, we're not really going
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
So Father Theo demanded that upon their exit that they agree to give all the names of the demons inside Emma, to which they agreed. So he knew
Okay.
that was his indicator that if that happened, that was his marker that the exorcism worked.
Like do your little roll call
Mm-hmm.
and it can be over.
Yep. All done. So on December 23rd, 1928, at around 9 p.m., they were in the middle of having the exorcism. She's got her normal precautions of being bound down to the bed and the nuns watching over her. Well, Emma broke free again, just like that first day, from the grip of her protectors and stood erect on the bed. The only thing touching was her heels.
Wow.
So they're all watching her, and they said it looked as if at any moment she was going to get hurled up to the ceiling.
Okay.
So Father Theo yelled, like, grab her, like, we don't want this to happen again. And he yells, begone, Satan.
Okay. Yeah.
At that very moment, the stiffness and rigidity in Emma's body gave way, and she fell backwards on the bed. and this piercing sound filled the room, causing everyone to start shaking. It was worse than any sound that they had ever heard before up to this point.
Whoa.
And the voices one by one came: Beelzebub, Judas, Jacob,
Whoa.
Mina, Lucifer, and so on. And it filled the room, and everyone was just in complete and total shock. Not only because the sound
Right.
is like ear-piercing,
Yeah.
soul-sucking, but hearing all the names and all in different voices.
Right. And also you're at this point in time where like you're looking for anything, any sign.
Any sign that this is over. So after that, after the noise and all the names, Emma opened her mouth and for the first time was able to speak like a normal person and announced that she was finally freed. And for the first time in 12 years, she was able to say Jesus's name and said, "My Jesus, mercy, praise be Jesus Christ." That was her exact words.
God bless.
So my research came from the book Begone, Satan. So that was written by Father Carl Vogel. So he gathered all of these eyewitness accounts after it happened because he wanted to put together a pamphlet to distribute to seminary students
Oh, wow.
for them to kind of learn about this stuff and just
Yeah.
show the strong of faith of what could happen. But it was later turned into the book, and if he hadn't have done that, this account never would have gotten out.
I was just gonna say, I mean, he probably did a pretty cool thing by doing that because in a sense, like, what's our purpose?
Yeah.
Like, people need to know this.
They need to know. They absolutely need to know. And he documenting it, he went back to all the nuns, went back to
Wow.
Father Theo, went
Yeah.
back to the pastor and to the housekeeper and got all their eyewitness testimony. It was all the same. None of their accounts wavered.
Yeah.
And he originally wrote it in German. It was translated in English, and it was circulated throughout the churches. And then at some point, it became published as a book and
Oh,
sold to the
wow.
public. And that's ultimately how the story of Emma Schmidt came to be.
Wow.
So in the book, there was a section at the end with the eyewitness testimony of the pastor's sister, the housekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
So it said, "I was a witness to almost the whole period of the exorcism, and I can truthfully say that the facts mentioned in Begone, Satan are correct. Some of the scenes were even more frightful than described in the book. I will never forget the horrible, vile, filthy, dirty scenes as long as I live." And many of the nuns who were present after the exorcism asked to be transferred. They were like, "Look, she's gone, but I can't stay here."
Yeah.
Like cell
Would you-
memory,
yeah,
right?
Get me a new house.
So from that time on, Emma was able to attend church, receive communion, and she lived like a fairly normal life, aside from the fact that her father possessed her for 30 years and her aunt was a witch. And she died on June 23rd, 1941 at the age of 59. So she didn't live
Not-
as long as one would like, given the first half of her life.
Yeah.
So Emma's case, though, is considered by theology and paranormal scholars to be one of the most abundantly documented cases of possession in the 20th century. And it was even included in a 1936 issue of Time magazine.
Wow.
And the movie The Exorcism of Anna Ecklund was made about the case after that.
That's awesome.
It is a
bless.
case definitely that highlights that battle of good and evil and what people endure when they're being possessed.
And everyone else around them too.
Yeah, I mean, if the lasting effects on the people that witness these things is extraordinary.
Oh, for sure. There's no, I mean, I'm gonna remember that. Like
The one, her clinging to the damn wall
to
with that
the
evil
wall,
smile.
the puking,
It's insane. The body
You know what?
contortions.
dad and the evil aunt. I mean, yikes.
The witch.
Yeah, the witch.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Hosting Evil. For more information on this case and others, you can visit our website at hostingevilpodcast.com.
And don't forget to check us out on social media at Hosting Evil Podcast.
Until next time, I'm Jess. Peace, love, and light.
And I'm Emily. Keep fighting those demons.
Hosting Evil is recorded and produced by Carly Strange at Rockdale Studios.